Ralph. It's an honor to be here with all of you today. It was great just a minute ago to see Dara, Sammy, and Ezra standing up here leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. It reminded me of my own kids and of the fact that it wasn't that long ago when they too would have been drowned out by this podium. But Alan, I assure you it won't last very long. They will grow up faster than you know it. It reminds me of the fact that when my twin boys, my two oldest, were just about 16, I had a really interesting conversation with them just about 3 years ago. I was driving down the road with James and John. They're both good students. They're both good kids. We were listening to a popular song on the radio this particular day, a song that I had heard many times, but that I hadn't paid attention to very closely. And on this particular day, I happened to notice the words. The words were awful. The words were exactly opposite of what any Christian, God-fearing father of children that he wants to raise to be God-fearing children would want his kids listening to. And so I seized the volume control in the car stereo and I turned it down and I said, guys, have you ever listened to the words of this song? They're terrible. My son John, who's a good kid, didn't miss a beat. And without batting an eye, he said to me, Dad, it's not bad if you don't think about it. And I thought, oh my goodness, my son John must be advising the President of the United States. Well, you're all here because you are thinking about it. And I'm delighted to be at this event once again because I always enjoy spending time with conservatives who are thinking about it and who understand the essential and inextricable link that exists between faith and freedom. For those of us who are here at this conference, we recognize the artificial nature of any division between economic conservatism on the one hand and social conservatism on the other. These are simply terms of convenience used to describe two sides of the same coin. For conservatives, faith and freedom are both rooted in respect and reverence for the dignity of human life, whether it's advocating on behalf of the unborn, rescuing children trapped in failing schools, or championing the moral and the material superiority of free enterprise. Conservatives are animated by the same moral truth of human dignity. This is the essence of the self-evident truths expressed in the Declaration of Independence, that all human beings have an equal claim to self-government and that they're all endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Human dignity is the undeniable basis for everything that we stand for as conservatives. It's the reason we cherish human freedom and the right to live according to our own beliefs. It's the reason we insist on economic opportunity for all to earn a good living and build a good life for our families. And it's the reason we hold up voluntary civil society, formed by free individuals, as the best and the most ennobling place for citizens to cultivate bonds of cooperation with and service to one another. Today's conference is called The Road to Majority. This title reflects the importance of transforming the conservative movement into a national majority. But we should recognize what's needed to be successful in building this road. First, we must know where we are, and second, we must know where we're going. Some have suggested that the ultimate goal is a majority. I respectfully disagree. I believe that, like a road, a majority is a means to an end. Our ultimate goal is to enact conservative policies that restore the proper role of government, re-energize our economy, and create the conditions in which all Americans have a fair chance to pursue happiness and find it. Starting there, we can start to work our way backward. Our task, to paraphrase James Madison, requires two things. First, fidelity to the object of government, which is the happiness of the people. And secondly, a knowledge of the means by which that object can be best attained. To enact conservative policies, we will need conservative majorities in the House and Senate, but this alone is not enough. We will also need to elect a conservative to the White House, who will unapologetically fight for the principles we believe in, the values we share, and the policies we all know will actually work. Now, that does mean winning elections in 2014 and in 2016. But to do that, we must earn a mandate from the American people today. Starting right now, we must win their support for our vision. A conservative reform agenda that redesigns our unwieldy welfare state and modernizes our outdated government programs so that they address the growing lack of opportunity for the millions of working families of or aspiring to the middle class. I don't think I need to go to great lengths to explain the problems with our current government. There's no shortage of facts showing that our fiscal situation is unsustainable. But it suffices to say that we have become far too comfortable with the word trillion in our political discourse. More and more every day, we're confronted with the real-life consequences of a government that tries to do things that it cannot and should not do. Our federal government is so overextended that it's failing to fulfill even its most basic responsibilities, like caring for our veterans, securing our borders, enforcing our laws, and conducting a coherent foreign policy that, at the very least, does no harm to our national security. And the liberal ideology driving this expansion of the state seeks to subordinate the dignity of the individual to the political agenda of a progressive government. This is an agenda that denies the sanctity of life, that rejects the inviolable human right to live according to one's religious convictions, and is utterly blind to the moral and economic consequences of our nation's growing marriage crisis. This is where our road begins, at this unsustainable and unacceptable state of affairs. What stands between us and a truly healthy, flourishing society, one filled with bigger citizens, stronger families, and more heroic communities, is a conservative reform agenda that doesn't just cut big government, but also fixes broken government. Federal programs cost too much because they're part of a broken bureaucratic system, one that cannot be fixed simply by pouring more money in or simply by taking money out. To fix our broken government, it's not enough to simply roll back ineffective policies that concentrate too much power in Washington. We must also roll out bold conservative reforms that empower the people closest to the problems to test and refine solutions that work best for their communities. This bottom-up approach to solving public problems enables service providers to experiment with different approaches, and it allows consumers and beneficiaries of those services to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and how to keep improving. Conservatives can be confident that these kinds of reforms would reduce the size and cost of government, but perhaps only incidentally. The primary goal should always be to build a functioning government that works for all Americans, especially for the poor and the middle class, and protects the space for them to meet the challenges of life in the 21st century. These are the basic principles behind a new line of legislative proposals that I've been rolling out, aimed at reducing the cost and increasing access to the staples of working and middle-class economic security. To mitigate the economic costs of raising children, I've proposed a tax reform that would get rid of the marriage tax penalty and the parent tax penalty. I've introduced a transportation reform proposal that would dramatically reduce the power and influence of the Washington filter by empowering the states to improve their own transportation systems so that their citizens can spend less time stuck in traffic and more time at home with their children. And to reduce the skyrocketing costs of college, I've proposed a bill that would open up our higher education system to more diverse, affordable, and responsive educational options, aimed at expanding post-secondary opportunities for the students that are truly left behind by the current system. For every one of my legislative proposals, there are a handful of others coming from a new generation of conservative leaders in Congress who are committed deeply to meeting our challenges with principled, positive, and unapologetically conservative reforms. This election season, we've already seen the kind of momentum that these kinds of reforms can generate, as many of the most promising and conservative candidates around the country have embraced these ideas, and they're winning. This is exactly the kind of model that we can replicate at the national level again in 2016. The key to expanding the conservative movement, expanding it into a conservative majority, is to get more and more people to sign on and run on these reforms. This is how we win elections. This is how we succeed in implementing the real alternative to big government, a thriving, flourishing nation of cooperative communities where your success depends on your service. It may seem like a long haul to get from our starting point today to the end of the road, where a conservative president is leading the effort to enact bold conservative reforms, but there's no place I'd rather be. I'm thankful for all the efforts of all the happy warriors in this room, and I look forward to continuing to the end of this road alongside all of you. Thank you, and may God bless the United States of America.